What happens when a celebrity guest walks onto one of America's most beloved morning shows and decides the rules don't apply to them? In just 37 seconds, one comment would shatter the carefully polished image Meghan Markle had spent years cultivating. And it all happened live on Good Morning America, with millions watching. The cameras were rolling. The lights were bright. And Lara Spencer, the host who had interviewed everyone from presidents to pop stars, had no idea she was about to face the most difficult guest of her entire career. This is the story of how a simple morning interview turned into television chaos. It started like any other segment. Lara Spencer sat across from Meghan Markle in the bright, cheerful studio of Good Morning America. The set was decorated with fresh flowers. The audience was excited. Everything seemed perfect. Lara opened with a warm smile. "Meghan, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Our viewers are absolutely thrilled to have you here." Meghan barely looked up from her phone. She gave a tight smile and said, "Well, I'm here now." There was an awkward pause. Lara, ever the professional, pushed forward. "Let's talk about your recent projects. You've been working on some really exciting initiatives." "Can we adjust the lighting?" Meghan interrupted, looking around the studio with clear dissatisfaction. "This is really unflattering." The crew exchanged glances. Lara's smile stayed intact, but you could see something flicker in her eyes. "Of course, we can make some adjustments, but I have to say, you look absolutely beautiful." Meghan waved her hand dismissively. "I know what works for me, and this isn't it." Lara took a breath and consulted her notes. "Okay, well, while the crew makes those changes, why don't we talk about your advocacy work? Our audience would love to hear about the causes that matter to you." "You know what?" Meghan said, leaning back in her chair with an attitude that made everyone in the studio uncomfortable. "I actually think we should talk about something more important. Let's talk about how the media has treated me." Lara nodded slowly. "That's certainly something we can discuss. I know you've had some challenges with press coverage over the years." "Challenges?" Meghan's voice rose sharply. "Lara, do you have any idea what it's like to be scrutinized every single day? To have everything you do picked apart by people who don't know you?" "I can only imagine how difficult that must be," Lara responded with genuine empathy. "But you've also had an incredible platform to do good work and reach people all over the world." Meghan scoffed. "A platform? Is that what you call it when every tabloid in existence is writing lies about you?" The audience shifted uncomfortably in their seats. This wasn't the lighthearted morning conversation they had expected. Lara remained calm and professional. "I think what our viewers would really love to hear about is how you've used your voice despite those challenges. You've spoken up for women's rights, mental health awareness, and so many important issues." "You're not listening to me," Meghan snapped. "But I didn't come here to be patronized." Lara's eyebrows raised slightly. "I'm absolutely listening, Meghan. I'm trying to have a conversation with you about the positive impact you've made." "Positive impact," Meghan repeated mockingly. "You people always want to control the narrative. You want me to smile and nod and talk about my charity work so you can feel good about yourselves." The studio went completely silent. Even the camera operators looked stunned. Lara put down her notes and looked directly at Meghan. "I'm not sure where this is coming from, but I want to assure you that we invited you here to have an open and honest conversation. That's all I'm trying to facilitate." "Facilitate?" Meghan laughed bitterly. "You mean manipulate. That's what all of you do. You ask your little prepared questions and expect us to perform like trained seals." Lara's professional composure was being tested, but she didn't break. "Meghan, I've been doing this job for a very long time. I've interviewed thousands of people, and I can honestly say that I've never tried to manipulate anyone. I ask questions because our viewers want to get to know the people we have on our show." "Your viewers," Meghan said with disdain, "probably believe everything you tell them." That was the moment when you could see Lara's patience beginning to wear thin. Her jaw tightened, just slightly. Our viewers are intelligent people who can think for themselves. And right now, they're watching you be incredibly disrespectful to someone who's only tried to be kind to you. Meghan stood up abruptly. Disrespectful? You want to talk about disrespect? How about we talk about how this show ambushed me? Lara remained seated, her voice steady. Nobody ambushed you, Meghan. You agreed to come on the show. You knew what the format would be. If you had specific topics you wanted to avoid, your team could have communicated that to us beforehand. My team, Meghan said sarcastically, sitting back down with exaggerated movements. Everyone always blames the team. Maybe the problem is with people like you, who think you're entitled to ask whatever you want. Actually, Meghan, let me stop you right there, Lara said, her voice taking on a firmer tone. I haven't asked you anything invasive. I haven't asked about your personal relationships. I haven't asked about private family matters. I asked you about your work, your projects, and your public advocacy. Those are exactly the kinds of questions anyone would expect in an interview like this. Meghan waved her hand dismissively. It's not about the specific questions. It's about the tone, the attitude, the way you look at me like you're judging everything I say. Lara's eyebrows raised. I think what you're describing is your own perception, not my behavior. I've been nothing but respectful to you from the moment you sat down. Respectful? Meghan repeated with a bitter laugh. Is it respectful to put someone on the spot on live television? You're on a talk show, Meghan, Lara said, her patience clearly wearing thin, but her composure still intact. Being asked questions is literally the entire point of being here. If you didn't want to answer questions, you shouldn't have agreed to do the interview. I think you have that backwards, Lara said quietly but firmly. Nobody is entitled to anything here. You were invited as a guest. I'm the host. And this is a conversation, not an interrogation. Meghan crossed her arms. It certainly feels like an interrogation. Then maybe you should take a moment to think about why that is, Lara suggested. Because from where I'm sitting, I've asked you about your projects, your advocacy work, and I've tried to give you space to share your perspective. You're the one who seems determined to turn this into a confrontation. The audience members were watching this exchange like a tennis match, their heads turning back and forth between the two women. Meghan leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. You know what your problem is, Lara. You think because you sit in that chair, you have power over people. But you don't. Not over me. Lara's expression remained neutral, though her words carried weight. I've never thought I had power over anyone. What I do have is respect for this show, respect for our viewers, and respect for the opportunity to have meaningful conversations with interesting people. Right now, I'm struggling to have that conversation because you seem more interested in being combative than being genuine. Genuine? Meghan's voice dripped with sarcasm. You want genuine? Fine. I genuinely think this show is beneath me. I genuinely think you ask boring questions. And I genuinely think I made a mistake coming here. The gasps from the audience were audible. Even the producers in the control room were frozen, and unsure whether to cut to commercial or let this train wreck continue. Lara set her cards down on the table beside her and folded her hands. Meghan, I'm going to be very clear with you. You are a guest on this show. That means you were invited into our space, into our home in a sense, to have a conversation with our audience. If you feel this is beneath you, then I have to question why you accepted the invitation in the first place. Maybe I wanted to give you the benefit of the doubt, Meghan shot back. Clearly that was a waste of my time. Lara nodded slowly, processing this response. I see. So you came here expecting to be disappointed, and you're determined to make sure that happens. That's an interesting approach to doing an interview. Don't psychoanalyze me, Meghan snapped. You don't know anything about me. You're right. I don't know you personally, Lara admitted. That's actually why I was hoping we could have this conversation, so our viewers could get to know you better. But you seem more interested in creating conflict than creating connection. Meghan rolled her eyes dramatically. There you go again with your talk show psychology. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You people think you have everything figured out. What do you mean by you people? Lara asked, her tone remaining even. Media people. Television people. People who make a living off other people's stories, Meghan said accusingly. Lara leaned back slightly in her chair. Meghan, you chose to be in the public eye. Nobody forced you into that position. And yes, part of being a public figure is engaging with the media. If you're not comfortable with that, that's fine. But then perhaps doing interviews isn't the best use of your time or hours. I'm comfortable with media when they're fair, Meghan retorted. And what about this interview has been unfair? Lara asked directly. Please, tell me, because I genuinely want to understand what I've done that has made you feel this way. I think we're done here, Lara said, her voice leaving no room for argument. I've tried to be respectful. I've tried to be accommodating. But I will not sit here and allow you to insult me, this show, or our viewers. Meghan laughed, a sharp, humorless sound. You're dismissing me? That's rich. I'm ending an interview that has become unproductive and frankly uncomfortable for everyone involved, Lara clarified. You're welcome to stay seated. But we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll be moving on to our next segment. Unbelievable, Meghan muttered, loud enough for the microphones to pick up. This is exactly the kind of treatment I was talking about. Lara turned to face the camera directly, her professional mask firmly back in place. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have a cooking segment with Chef Marcus, and he's going to show us how to make the perfect spring salad. Stay with us. As the cameras cut away, Meghan ripped off her microphone and threw it onto the chair. This is ridiculous. Do you know who I am? Lara stood up slowly, her height advantage suddenly very apparent. Yes, Meghan, I know exactly who you are. You're someone who just threw away an opportunity to connect with millions of people who actually cared about what you had to say. And for what? Because you decided to come in here with an attitude and treat everyone around you like they're beneath you? I don't have to listen to this, Meghan said, grabbing her purse from beside the chair. You're right. You don't, Lara agreed. And I don't have to provide you with a platform to be rude and disrespectful. So I think it's best if you leave. Meghan's face flushed red. You're kicking me off? I'm asking you to leave, Lara corrected. There's a difference. You've made it very clear that you don't want to be here. So I'm making it easy for you. You can go. This is going to be everywhere, Meghan threatened. Everyone is going to hear about how I was treated on this show. Lara didn't flinch. I'm sure they will. And they'll be able to watch the footage and decide for themselves what actually happened here. I'm comfortable with that. Are you? For a moment, Meghan seemed at a loss for words. Then she turned on her heel and started walking toward the exit. But she couldn't resist one final parting shot. She stopped, turned back around, and looked directly at Lara. You know what? You're just like all the rest of them. You pretend to be nice, but really, you're just another bully with a microphone. Lara's response was calm and measured. Meghan, I'm going to say this one last time. I invited you here to have a conversation. You chose to make it a confrontation. You insulted me. You insulted this show. And you insulted our viewers. If standing up for myself and my team makes me a bully in your eyes, then I guess we have very different definitions of that word. The crew members nearby nodded almost imperceptibly. They had all witnessed what had transpired. Meghan opened her mouth to respond, then seemed to think better of it. She turned and walked off the set, her heels clicking loudly against the floor. As soon as she was out of sight, Lara took a deep breath and looked at her producer, who had rushed onto the set. Are we okay for the next segment? The producer nodded, still looking shell-shocked. Yeah, we're good. Chef Marcus is ready to go. Great, Lara said, smoothing down her blazer and checking her reflection in a nearby monitor. Let's make sure the rest of the show goes smoothly. Lara, the producer said quietly, you handled that incredibly well. Lara gave a small smile. I've been in this business long enough to know that you can only control your own behavior, not anyone else's. I tried my best to keep things professional. That's all any of us can do. The makeup artist rushed over to do a quick touch-up before they came back from commercial. Lara sat back down in her chair, took another deep breath, and prepared to move on as if nothing had happened. In the control room, the director was already reviewing the footage. "We need to decide how we're going to address this when we come back," he said into his headset. Lara touched her earpiece and responded, "Keep it simple. We had a guest who decided not to continue with the interview. We're moving on to our scheduled programming. And that's it." "You don't want to explain what happened?" the director asked. "The audience saw what happened," Lara replied. "They don't need me to spell it out for them. Let's just continue with the show." As the commercial break counted down, Lara composed herself completely. When the cameras came back on, her smile was genuine and warm. "Welcome back," she said to the camera, as if the previous segment had never occurred. "We've got a great show lined up for you. Chef Marcus is here, and he's brought some amazing fresh ingredients to create what he calls the ultimate spring salad. Marcus, welcome." Chef Marcus, who had been waiting in the wings and had witnessed the entire debacle, walked onto the set with his characteristic enthusiasm. "Thank you for having me, Lara. And I have to say, you are a true professional." Lara laughed. "Well, let's focus on this beautiful food you've brought us." As they moved into the cooking segment, the energy in the studio slowly returned to normal. The audience, still buzzing from what they had witnessed, gradually settled into enjoying the light-hearted cooking demonstration. But back in Meghan's dressing room, things were far from settled. Her publicist had rushed in, having watched the interview from a monitor backstage. "What were you thinking?" the publicist asked, her voice tight with stress. Meghan was pacing back and forth. "She was trying to make me look bad." "You didn't need any help with that," the publicist said bluntly. "Meghan, you just insulted one of the most respected hosts in morning television on live TV. This is going to be a nightmare to manage." "I don't care," Meghan insisted, and though her hands were shaking slightly. "She deserved it." "She deserved what exactly?" the publicist challenged. "She asked you normal interview questions. You're the one who came in hot and stayed that way." Meghan sat down heavily on the couch. "Whose side are you on?" "I'm on your side," the publicist said, sitting down next to her. "Which is why I'm telling you the truth. You messed up. Badly. And now, we need to figure out how to do damage control." Back on set, the cooking segment was wrapping up. Lara was laughing genuinely at something Chef Marcus had said, tasting the salad he had prepared. "This is absolutely delicious," she said, taking another bite. "Our viewers need to try this recipe. Where can they find it?" As Chef Marcus plugged his cookbook and website, the show continued seamlessly. You would never know that just 20 minutes earlier, one of the most dramatic moments in morning television history had unfolded in that very spot. During the next commercial break, Lara's phone was already blowing up with messages. Colleagues from other networks, friends, even competitors were reaching out. Her executive producer approached her. "Lara, social media is going crazy. The video is already being clipped and shared everywhere." Lara nodded. "I figured it would be." "Do you want to make a statement?" the producer asked. "No," Lara said firmly. "The interview speaks for itself. I'm not going to add fuel to the fire by commenting on it. We move forward." "The network might want you to address it," the producer warned. "Then the network can tell me that directly," Lara replied. "But my instinct is to let it go. Getting into a back and forth with her will only make this bigger than it needs to be." As the show continued, Lara moved through each segment with her usual grace and professionalism. A fashion segment, a book review, a feel-good story about a local hero. Each one was handled with the same care and attention she always gave. But everyone watching knew that this show would be remembered for one thing only: the moment Meghan Markle got kicked off Good Morning America. In living rooms across the country, people were texting their friends, posting on social media, and calling their relatives to tell them to turn on the TV or find the clip online. The clips were being shared thousands of times per minute. Comments were pouring in from all sides. Some people defended Meghan, saying she must have had a reason to be upset. But the overwhelming majority sided with Lara. "She was nothing but professional," one comment read. "Meghan came in looking for a fight." "Lara Spencer is a class act," another person wrote. "She tried so hard to keep that interview on track." "The entitlement is unreal," someone else posted. "Imagine going on someone's show and treating them like that." Back in the studio, as the show wrapped up for the day, the crew gathered around Lara. "You okay?" one of the camera operators asked. Lara smiled. "I'm fine, really. It was an unusual situation, but we handled it and we moved on. That's what professionals do." "You were amazing," one of the production assistants said. "I don't know how you stayed so calm." "Years of practice," Lara joked. "Yeah, and knowing that losing my cool would only make things worse." As the crew began breaking down the set for the day, Lara gathered her things and headed to her dressing room. She sat down at her vanity and looked at herself in the mirror. She had been in broadcasting for decades. She had interviewed politicians who tried to dodge questions, celebrities who showed up drunk, athletes who walked out mid-interview. But this had been different. This had been someone who came in with the specific intention of being difficult, and Lara had handled it the only way she knew how, with professionalism, directness, and ultimately by standing up for herself and her team. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from a fellow host at another network. "Just saw what happened. You were perfect. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Lara smiled and typed back a quick thank you. There would be more messages, more comments, more analysis of every word spoken during that interview. But Lara knew the truth. She had done her job. She had tried to be fair, tried to be kind, and when that wasn't reciprocated, she had set a boundary. And really, that was all anyone could ask. As she left the studio that day, walking past the security desk and out into the New York sunshine, Lara felt proud. Not because of how the interview had ended, but because of how she had conducted herself throughout it. In the world of live television, anything can happen. Guests can be difficult. Technology can fail. Scripts can go out the window. But what matters is how you respond in those moments. And Lara Spencer had responded exactly the way a professional should, with dignity, with firmness when necessary, and with an unwavering commitment to doing her job well. The interview with Meghan Markle would be dissected and debated for days, weeks, maybe even months to come. But for Lara, it was just another day at work. A challenging day, certainly. An unusual day, absolutely. But ultimately, just another day of doing what she loved, connecting with viewers, telling stories, and holding space for conversations, even when those conversations didn't go as planned. Because that's what real broadcasting is about. It's not just about the easy interviews or the friendly guests. It's about being able to navigate the difficult moments with grace. It's about knowing when to push forward and when to draw a line. And on that morning, in front of millions of viewers, Lara Spencer had drawn that line clearly and confidently. Meghan Markle had walked onto that set thinking she could control the narrative, dictate the terms, and treat the host with disrespect. Instead, she had walked off that set having shown the world exactly who she was. And Lara Spencer? She had shown the world exactly who she was, too. A consummate professional who wouldn't be bullied, wouldn't be disrespected, and wouldn't compromise her values for anyone, no matter how famous they might be. That's the real story of what happened that day on Good Morning America. Not just a celebrity meltdown or a dramatic exit, but a masterclass in professionalism under pressure. And that's a lesson worth remembering long after the viral clips have stopped circulating and the social media debates have moved on to the next controversy. Because in the end, how we treat people matters. How we conduct ourselves matters. And when someone shows you who they are, believe them. Lara Spencer believed what she saw that day, and she responded accordingly, with strength, with professionalism, and with the kind of integrity that has defined her career. That's why, when people look back at this moment, they won't just remember the drama. They'll remember the host who stood her ground, kept her composure, and showed everyone watching what real class looks like.